I never thought I would end up in a hostel like this. The building was old, abandoned in most parts, and the corridor walls were peeling paint in streaks of gray. My room number was 27 at the far end of the 3rd floor. Everyone warned me to avoid it, but I didn't listen. The first night was quiet. Too quiet. Every sound I made echoed oddly as if the walls were listening. Around midnight, I heard a faint scratching behind my cupboard. I froze. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't a rat. It was deliberate, slow, patient. I waited. The sound stopped. I told myself it was my imagination and went to sleep, though my heart was racing. The second night, the scratching returned, this time accompanied by whispers. I couldn't make out the words, just soft murmurs that seemed to come from inside the walls themselves. I tried recording with my phone, but when I played it back in the morning, there was nothing. Not a single sound had been captured. By the 3rd night, I was terrified but curious. I decided to stay awake and see if the shadow would appear. Around 12:10 a.m., a dark figure emerged from the corner of the room. I couldn't see its face. It seemed to absorb the light around it. It moved silently across the floor, stopping just inches from my bed. "Who's there?" I whispered, my voice shaking. The shadow didn't answer. Instead, it raised a long, thin hand, or something that looked like a hand, and pointed at my door. Then it vanished. The air grew cold, my breath visible in the dark room, and the door creaked slowly as if pushed by an invisible force. I didn't sleep that night. I spent hours watching, waiting, my phone clutched tightly in my hands. When morning came, I found a message scrawled across my wall, not with ink, not with paint, but written in the dust. "You saw me. I saw you." I tried to leave, but the hostel seemed to trap me. Every corridor looked longer than it had before, every staircase turned back toward my room. It was as if the building itself didn't want me to leave. The 4th night was worse. The shadow returned, this time moving faster, circling my bed. I could feel it breathing. Every time I looked away, it was closer. I tried to call for help, but my phone refused to turn on. The whispers grew louder, chanting in a language I didn't know, yet somehow understood. "Stay, stay." Finally, I realized I wasn't alone. I wasn't just sharing the room with a shadow. The room itself was alive, and it was aware of me. Every sound I made, every breath I took was being watched. I had no choice but to stay awake, hoping the morning would come. When dawn finally broke, the shadow was gone. The room looked normal. My bag, my bed, even the scratched cupboard, all seemed untouched. But the message remained on the wall. I knew then that I hadn't imagined anything. Room 27 was waiting, and it would remember me. Too, the walls whisper. I didn't sleep that day. Even in the bright daylight, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was watching me. Every reflection in the windows, every movement of shadows in the hallways, seemed to echo the darkness of room 27. I tried to convince myself it was just fear, but my gut told me otherwise. That night, I returned to the room earlier than usual. The hallway seemed longer, narrower, twisted in ways it hadn't been the day before. The air smelled colder, metallic, like it had been trapped in the walls for decades. I unlocked the door slowly. The message was still on the wall, but now there was another line scrawled beneath it, as if added while I wasn't looking. "I know you're afraid." Good. I swallowed hard. The cupboard scratches had deepened, forming a jagged pattern that almost looked like teeth. I sat on the bed, heart racing, waiting for anything to happen. Then I heard it. A soft scratching coming from the walls, moving clockwise around the room. Slowly it grew louder, rhythmic, deliberate. I shivered, realizing it was following me, watching every move. My phone lay on the table, lifeless. I tried to stand, but my legs felt heavy as if the room itself had weighed them down. The shadow appeared again, but this time it wasn't stationary. It drifted along the walls, bending corners impossibly, moving faster than the human eye could follow. It whispered my name, not once but over and over, each time closer than before. "Alex? Alex?" I froze. I couldn't look directly at it. I could feel the air shift, the room shrinking around me. The bed, the cupboard, even the walls, they seemed alive. The whispering intensified, and I realized it wasn't just my name. It was recounting my thoughts, every fear, every memory, as if it knew me better than I knew myself. Panicked, I ran to the door. But when I touched the handle, it was icy cold, locked from the inside. The shadow condensed into a dark mass in front of me, its edges jagged, stretching up to the ceiling. It made no sound, but the air itself vibrated with its presence. I stumbled back toward the bed, realizing the whispers weren't coming from the shadow, they were coming from the walls themselves. The paint seemed to ripple, the plaster cracked slightly, forming shapes that resembled faces, screaming silently. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Time lost all meaning. Minutes, hours, maybe seconds, I couldn't tell. Every flicker of the light bulb above revealed the shadow closer, and every time I blinked, the room had changed. The walls were not where they were before. The cupboard had shifted to a corner I didn't remember. The bed was closer to the door. Then the whispering stopped. Silence fell. Absolute silence. My chest heaved, sweat covering my body. I stared at the shadow. It stood perfectly still, then slowly pointed toward the window. I looked outside. Nothing. Just the empty courtyard below, bathed in faint moonlight. When I looked back at the shadow, it had vanished. But the walls were different. Faint words appeared across the plaster, etched as if by invisible fingers. You belong to room 27 now. Don't leave. I wanted to run, to escape, but I knew the hallway outside wasn't the same. Every step I took seemed to loop me back to the same spot, the same corner of the room. Room 27 had claimed me. I was trapped, and somehow I knew it had been waiting for me all along. Morning came, but the daylight didn't help. The room looked empty, normal, almost welcoming. The whispering had stopped. Yet every night I knew it would return. The shadow was patient. It would wait. And every night the walls would whisper more of my secrets. I had survived one night. I didn't know if I would survive the next. I woke up that morning feeling hollow. Sleep had barely touched me, yet I was exhausted. The walls of room 27 seemed smaller, oppressive, as if the room had grown while I slept. My bag, my books, everything was slightly out of place, and the dust message on the wall, "You belong to room 27 now," glowed faintly in the early light. I tried leaving again. Step after step, I reached the door, only to find the hallway shifting beneath me. The staircase led me back to my room. The walls seemed alive, bending and breathing in impossible ways. The entire building had changed, and I realized then that room 27 was not just a room, it was the heart of the building, and it pulsed with a dark intelligence. Night fell, faster than usual, and I could feel the temperature drop. I sat on the bed, heart pounding, trying to steady my breathing. Then I heard it, a slow scratching starting from the ceiling, moving across the walls, circling the room like a predator stalking its prey. The shadow appeared once more, larger, denser, its edges jagged and curling like smoke. Its eyes, if they could be called eyes, glowed faintly red in the darkness. It spoke this time in a voice that was not a voice, a chorus of whispers layered together, each one echoing my fears. "You can't leave. You belong. You belong. You belong." The cupboard rattled violently, the door swinging open and closed by itself. The bed creaked, shifting toward the center of the room. The walls stretched and curved, faces emerging briefly, mouths opening to scream silently. I couldn't move, paralyzed by fear, watching as the room became a living cage. Then the shadow moved closer. I tried to scream, but my voice was stolen. It hovered over me, a cold mass pressing down, darkness filling my vision. I thought I would suffocate, my chest constricted by the invisible weight. Then, suddenly, it vanished, leaving behind only silence. I dared to breathe again. The walls were still, yet I could feel the room watching, waiting, counting every second. I noticed a small piece of paper on the floor. I didn't remember placing it there. On it was written, in letters that shimmered slightly in the dim light, "You cannot leave. One of us now." I understood. Room 27 didn't just trap people, it consumed them. My thoughts, my memories, my fears were no longer private. I was a part of it now, and it was a part of me. Desperate, I tried breaking a window. The glass wouldn't shatter. I tried opening the door again, locked. I screamed. No sound came out. The shadow appeared again, this time standing still in the corner, as if it had always been there, waiting for the perfect moment. Then the walls themselves started to move. Slowly at first, then faster. The floor beneath me creaked as if breathing. Dust swirled in the air, forming words in rapid succession. The last one never leaves. The last one never sleeps. The last one stays forever. I collapsed on the bed, realizing I had nowhere to run. The shadow leaned closer. I felt my mind being pulled, memories of my childhood, my fears, everything being absorbed by the room. Time became meaningless. Seconds stretched into hours, minutes into days. I was trapped in a nightmare that refused to end. When dawn finally came, the shadow disappeared. The walls returned to their normal positions, the bed and cupboard in place, the message faint on the wall. I could breathe again, barely. I looked out the window. The world seemed ordinary, yet I knew it was a lie. Room 27 had won. I had survived another night, but I was changed. Every night, the shadow would return. Every night, the walls would whisper my secrets. And one day, I would vanish like the others, becoming a part of the room itself. I left the hostel the next morning carrying my bag but not entirely myself. Something inside room 27 came with me, a shadow lingering at the edge of my vision, a whisper in the corners of my mind. And I knew deep down that I would return. The shadow waits. Room 27 waits. And it will always find you.